Yo, what's going on guys, Arekkz here, welcome back to another Monster Hunter World video. Today we are talking about armour. In the most recent weapon videos that Capcom released, not only did we get our first proper look at all 14 weapon types in game, which by the way if you guys haven't seen then I have a complete breakdown linked down below, but at the same time we also got to look at some new and returning armour sets. For those of you guys that are new to Monster Hunter, armour is basically one of the three main pillars in this series. We hunt and farm monsters, we craft badass weapons, and we craft awesome armor sets. It's what keeps us coming back, it's what keeps us grinding, and every time you take down a new monster you've never fought before, one of the most exciting things is heading back to the hub to see what the armor set and weapons for that particular monster looks like. So it's safe to say, seeing new armor sets is a pretty big deal. So in this video, we're going to take a look at all the ones we've seen so far. I've actually grouped them into three different categories. There are the new armor sets that we know about by name, having seen them in the gameplay. Then there's the new armor sets we know nothing about, likely from monsters we have yet to see. And then finally, there are the returning armor sets that we've seen in previous Monster Hunter games. If you do enjoy this, then a like would be super appreciated. And be sure to comment down below and let me know what you guys think and which set is your favourite. Now, kicking things off with the sets that we know about. First up, Anjanath. This right here is a look at both the male and female sets. We got a first look at the male set back in the English gameplay they released a while ago, and I said at the time how it sort of reminded me of like Ratheon meets Gypsaros in a way, but either way this sort of pinky red tone is the predominant colour throughout, which is of course the colour scheme we see on Anjanath. And there's this big fluffy cape that hangs down the back, and thanks to the gameplay from the PlayStation Hong Kong livestream yesterday, we also got a much better look at the female set in action too. Now if we jump over to the part where they actually equip this gear in the base camp, we can see that the set has fire resistance, which is of course to be expected, and while we don't know exactly how the armor skill system will work in World since we haven't been able to see all the menus, from the armor pieces we've seen, the set has a couple of points in attack boost, 2 points in fire resist, and 1 point in fire attack. But again, at this stage, until we actually understand how the skill system works, that doesn't really mean much. It's also worth calling out, since this has been asked quite a bit, it does seem like they're doing away with the notion of Blade Master and Gunner armor sets. While this hasn't been verbally confirmed by Capcom yet, based on the gameplay that we've seen and the fact that they are able to equip a ranged weapon without changing armor, I'm going to assume that's the case. For those of you guys that are new to the series, in the past, ranged weapons always had different armor sets to Blade Master weapons, so if you wanted to go ranged or vice versa, you had to craft a completely separate armor set, which is often why people were sometimes reluctant to try the other side of the coin because it was a lot more effort. It seems now that instead of that, you just get a different weapon type bonus on your gear depending on whether you have a Blade Master or a Gunner weapon equipped. Blade Masters have physical damage lessened, meanwhile Gunners have elemental damage lessened. Anyway, the last thing I want to comment on, of course, before we move on, is the Slinger. This new arm-mounted cannon is present on your hunter at all times, and while the form factor appears to remain largely the same, there are some visual differences between the sets. So this is what the Slinger looks like on the Anjanath armor set. Moving on from there, we have the Hunter set. Now this is more than likely going to be the bulk standard starter set that you begin the game with. You always begin a Monster Hunter game with a basic starter armor set. The appearance will differ from game to game, usually influenced by the theme of the game or the village around you. It is a typically bland looking set, cobbled together with pieces of bone and metal, but it's also not something you'll have for long since you'll very quickly be off farming new gear. Now in the gameplay we've largely seen this on the male hunter, but thanks to the armor render images we do have a look at the female set too. Well, sort of. Admittedly her back is turned, so you can see that it has a sort of half cape, plus this beret looking hat. As for the Slinger, this one is pretty basic. In fact, since this is probably the starter armor set, I'm going to say this is the most basic Slinger out there. 2 curved horn-like bones and a central metal body. Moving on from there to the third and final new set that we actually have details on, this time it's the Vault set. This was shown during the Hong Kong livestream yesterday. They equipped this when swapping to the light Bogan. It's got this cool sort of hooded leaf design, and the female helmet, or hood should I say, actually seems to have these sort of cat ears. The interesting thing I want to call out here, however, was this. In the weapon gameplay they showed, the bow user was wearing this set. Similar story for the male hunter. His back is turned, we can't see much aside from the hood and the iconic leafy design. The female character, on the other hand, doesn't have a helmet in this instance like in the livestream gameplay. Now for the purposes of the videos, I don't know whether that means they simply just didn't equip the helmet to kind of give you a different look, or whether there's the option to kind of turn off the helmet like you see in other games, MMOs, things like that. It would be really cool if that was the case, since sometimes it is just cool to sort of see your hunter's face, but for the time being, that was just an observation. Going by the menus, this set had armor skill points in speed eating, recovery up, and stealth. And finally, taking a look at the Slinger, this one seems very similar in design to the one on the Hunter set, so not really much to talk about on this front. So, those were 3 new armor sets that we actually had some details on But now let's talk about the other new sets that we've seen in this video. For these, we haven't seen them in actual gameplay, nor have we seen them being equipped, so we have no idea what they're called, where they come from, but there are some really awesome designs here. I want to kick things off with the set the Dual Blade user was wearing. This blue armor set is probably my favourite one I've seen so far. It is brand new, and I'm loving the crazy sort of Sub-Zero beetle-like face mask with the massive horns poking out. Looking closely at the armour, I would be willing to hazard a guess that it either comes from some sort of bug-like monster or a reptile. The structure doesn't seem to match that of, say, gear typically comprised of wyvern scales. They are far less pronounced, much more like reptilian skin, but some of the spikes and horns also remind me of these sort of Neoterran type monsters. The female set, from what we can see at the back, appears to ditch the aggressive looking face mask in favour of some pilot-like goggles instead. And as for the slinger, this time the horns either side are blue to match the gear, and the central component is a horn with material wrapped around it. Very awesome looking set, and for sure going to be something I look forward to farming when the game comes out. Next up, we have the set being worn by the hunting horn user with this white, fluffy, almost arctic looking set. The female set has a kind of big, puffy looking hat, and the male hat appears to have like a little peak at the front, making it look more like a cap. There are certain aspects of this that remind me of the Lagombi armour, but at the same time, I'd say it's different enough to say that it's definitely not just a revised Lagombi set. This definitely has to be from a new monster. Going by the thick woolen coat look, I'd also hazard a guess that this comes from some sort of snowy creature, which in itself might also hint at the potential for a snowy tundra-style map. Of course, do bear in mind all of this is speculation based on the appearance of the set, so don't take that to mean there will be a snowy map, but since that is a common biome in previous Monster Hunter games, I wouldn't be surprised if we see it again. The last thing I do want to call out as well is this on the waist. The new scout flies are of course what we use to track monsters, and they are stored in these sort of hip flasks, or cages so to speak. Most sets that we've seen have this cylindrical design, but this set in particular has a smaller, rounder pouch, so it seems that can also change too. The slinger on this one doesn't look that different, so moving on from there, we then have another blue set, this time being wielded by the Switch-Axe user. Now looking at this side by side with the first blue armor set we spoke about, I would definitely say that this one is much more Neoterran than the first one. The legs and the helmet definitely scream bug type to me, but interestingly the cape sort of reminds me of like the Malfestio armor set, meanwhile there are some hints of say Shogun Senator. From what we can see, the female helmet seems again to sort of lose the full face helmet in favour of a sort of headband-like design, somewhat similar to that of say the helmet on Barioth or Naga. As for the slinger, this one also has two blue horns either side, this time with spikes on it and the central piece with the wraps. Next up, the set being worn by the Insect Glaive user. This one is actually pretty cool, but in truth the armour doesn't really give us many hints as to the type of monster it comes from. It actually reminds me of the Gerudo armour set that Link wears in Breath of the Wild. Also, just to be very clear, to anyone watching this that is say new to Monster Hunter, I've been referring to these armour sets in the context of the weapon being wielded, but don't take that to mean that these sets are for these weapons. You can wear any armour set in Monster Hunter and wield any weapon, so it's not like it's a sort of class-based system or anything. Just wanted to try and clear that up in case there was any confusion. What I would say about this armour set, given the light nature of it, is that it does seem like the sort of set that would come from perhaps a desert-based monster, so if that snowy-looking set earlier hints at say a tundra, perhaps this could hint at say a desert plain style map. And again, Slinger in this one seems to be much more in line with the bog standard one we saw in the Hunter set. After that, jumping over to the set being wielded by the light Bogan user. This one has a turquoise colour scheme to it, some fur trimmings around the shoulders, waist and hat, and bone details around the legs. Now, as designs go, this definitely reminds me of sort of jaggy and baggy armour sets of old. Again, for those of you new to the series, Monster Hunter has in the past typically eased you into the game by having you fight a smaller raptor-like creature. There are many different variations, but the armour designs from them are somewhat comparable to this. With that in mind, I wonder whether this perhaps comes from, say, Monster Hunter World's equivalent to, like, a Jaggy. Something small that you fight early on, perhaps the means to get your first armour set before you then go off to fight bigger monsters later on. Also, the sort of cold colour tone again further hints at a possible sort of tundra location. And the Slinger in this instance, again, a little different, similar tone and scaly appearance to the armour itself. Moving on from there to this set being worn by the heavy Bogan user. It's got this sort of yellow and blue colour scheme, which actually reminds me of sort of Tigrex gear, but this is definitely not Tigrex gear. It is nowhere near as spiky or angry enough, plus we already know what that gear looks like from previous games. Genuinely hoping that Tigrex actually makes a return. That is one of my favourite monsters. I would love to see that in World, but for the time being, this armour set has this sort of half cape that hangs down the back, some armour plating, and a bog standard slinger. It is possible this could be the gear from Great Jagras, since the shoulders seem to have this sort of layered, floppy design similar to its hair, but only time will tell. Then finally moving on from there to the set being worn by the Gunlance user. In truth, this one had me a bit confused. I feel like I've seen this before, but I can't quite place it, hence why I put it in the new armour category. It's essentially just a big metal armour set, perhaps the default iron set that you can sort of buy from a smithy. Again, to those of you guys new to the series, typically at the start of a Monster Hunter game, you have your starter armor, the hunter armor, and then there's a smithy that can sell you some basic sets, leather, iron, just the sort of ones to get you started before you begin crafting. This could be that set. It doesn't look that iconic, the helmet has that sort of acorn structure to it. Besides that, I don't really have much to say about this one. The slinger, however, does look a little bit different, much more angular, metal, sort of industrial in design. Now, that's the new armor sets out of the way, so lastly, let's talk about the returning sets from monsters that we've seen before. First up, Rathalos. Rathalos is the poster boy for Monster Hunter. He has been here from the start, we've seen him in the gameplay, and now we see his armor. What is exciting, however, is that this gear is the old school Rathalos set. The armor has been through some changes over the years, but for World it seems like they're going back to their roots and bringing us an HD version of the OG Rathalos set. And what's cool is that the slinger heavily embodies the Rathalos look and style as well. After that, we have the Bone set. Again, another staple for the series, only this time it looks so much better. I've always liked the Bone set simply because of the helmet, since it's basically just a huge skull. But in previous Monster Hunter games, the legs and the waist essentially have you running around in your pants, but this time they fleshed it out much more, and it almost has this sort of tribal look to it. I mean, I'm assuming this is the bone armor set, the helmet is typically a pretty big giveaway, so I'm going to go with that. And of course the slinger, once again heavily mirroring the set with some cool bone-like structure to it. After that we have the ingot armor set, another set that we've seen in previous Monster Hunter titles. This one has always looked very sort of regal in design, making it look like a sort of knight to a queen or something like that. However, this time around they've amped it up a bit and it's actually got this long red waist which makes it look so much cooler. In truth, I was never really a fan of this set in the past, but the way it looks now, I'm totally down with this. We also got to see this in the gameplay again from the Hong Kong livestream, and thanks to the base camp we can confirm this armor has skill points in defense boost, ice attack, stun resistance and critical eye. And the slinger again looks different, pretty modest, but in keeping with the armor theme. After that, we finally get to see the Ratheon armor set. Now, it was kind of a given really. When there's a Rathalos, there's always a Ratheon, and while we haven't seen it in game yet, the existence of this armor all but confirms that we will be seeing Ratheon in world. The female set always has this big sort of metal plate dress, as I like to describe it. Meanwhile, the male set is typically more traditional, like a sort of suit of armor, with a helmet similar to that of the Anjanath one you saw earlier, hence why I made the comparison. And here is an image from a previous Monster Hunter title to give you guys a better look at the sort of typical Ratheon design from the front. And then finally, the last set is the one they used in all the weapon demos. They introed with the cool armor sets, but then in the gameplay they used the basic gear and weapons. I can only assume this is sort of the bog standard leather armor set that I spoke about earlier, one of the ones you can buy from the vendors. Nothing really to write home about, but it does the job. And that, my friends, is pretty much it. That is all we have to go on right now. 15 different armor sets, 5 returning and 10 new. Some of the sets, things like Ingot, Hunter, Bone or the Metal one, they don't always come from specific monsters, but instead sometimes come from parts you gather around the world. Bones, ores, bugs, plants, etc. But from the 10 new sets we've seen, I'd say there's got to be at least 5 or 6 new monsters that we have yet to see, which is pretty exciting. However, for the time being, that's it. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Maybe you have your own ideas as to where you think these armor sets might have come from, so sound out if you do. Thanks very much for watching, take it easy, catch you next time, peace out.